Unmute
Hello
me.
and welcome to.
Oh, you're good.
Good. All right.
Yeah.
Sorry everyone for the technical difficulties. So hello and welcome to Planetos podcast, a podcast dedicated to the fans of George R. R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire and HBO's Game of Thrones. I'm one of your hosts, Travis.
I'm another one of your hosts, Brett.
And I'm your third host, Micah.
And our guest.
And we also want to Sorry. Yeah, I was going to say, and we also want to welcome Brett's brother, Cole, who has been a past guest on our podcast before. Welcome, Cole.
Hey, what's up?
This is our first time live streaming, so we're extremely nervous and also suffering, as always, some technical issues. But thank you to those of you out there who are listening live, those of you who are watching this video later on, and then those of you who will listen to this episode on a regular podcast in the coming days. We really thank you for joining us. We are so excited about today's topic in celebration of Halloween. It really ties so well into Saturday's spooky season. So tonight we're going to talk about something that many of us think about a lot in this fandom, and that is the Crypts of Winterfell. We're going to go beneath the old stones of House Stark's ancient castle, and we're going to talk about, this really dark setting in A Song of Ice and Fire. We'll speculate a little bit about what might happen in the books, but I think we're going to convey to you all just how kind of scary some of these dreams and sequences in the crypts are. There's such a place of such importance and reverence for House Stark. They appear in dreams and memories of Bran and Jon and Rickon and Ned and even Arya. And so, we have a lot to discuss tonight. So we want to go ahead and get started. As with everything on Planetos podcast, we like to begin with a little bit of background. So we'll do that. We'll tell you where the crypts are, what's in them, what they're used for, how old they are, and what takes place in the story. So, to enter the crypts of Winterfell, you must pass through an old and heavy ironwood door. This ironwood is a hard black wood found in the Wolf's Wood in the north, haunted forest in the lands beyond the wall, and throughout Winterfell's Godswood, where the trees are said to be as ancient as the realm itself. Now, remember iron, ladies and gentlemen. That's a really important element that we'll discuss later on. This ironwood door is located in the oldest section of Winterfell, near the first keep, and the Like Yard, which is a grave site, a graveyard for servants of the old kings of Winterfell, and is called that because lichen covers their headstones. I completely forgotten this point about Winterfell. I had no idea that there was a graveyard there, but yeah, it's pretty interesting, and it's the burial place for the servants of the kings of winter and the kings in the north. So to descend down into the crypts, you take a narrow and winding spiral stone steps that lead you down to chilly and dark crypts and the crypt's multiple levels. One level is reserved for the dead of House Stark, has a vaulted ceiling and a long line of granite columns, 2 by 2, between which are the dead of House Stark. There are also statues, which are traditionally for the kings in the north and the lords of Winterfell. Of course, we know that their likeness of the kings and the lords are carved into the stone, and most of them, if not all of them, have large stone dire wolves curled at their feet. Now, iron long swords are placed across the laps of the kings and the lords to keep vengeful spirits locked in the crypts. Remember that again, iron, very important. The cavernous vault is larger than Winterfell itself, which is an extremely large castle, but the vault itself is much larger than Winterfell. and we only see so much of it. So we know there's probably a lot down low in the lower levels. Older Starks and Kings are buried in deeper and darker levels, and supposedly the lowest level is partially collapsed. The most recent tombs in the crypts are for Lord Rickard Stark, father of Ned, and Brandon Stark and Lyanna Stark, brother and sister to Ned, of course. Brandon and Lyanna's tombs flank Lord Rickard's tomb. Now, there are more tombs that are emptied and unsealed that are meant for future members of House Stark. So, you can imagine that there were ones for Ned and for Robb and Sansa and Arya and Rickon and Jon and others probably. Now, it's really important to note that the statues of Brandon and Lyanna kind of unprecedented. Again, statues are meant for the kings and the lords, but Ned had those statues made for his brother and sister. There is also a statue of Artos the Implacable, who was a pretty successful young brother of Lord Willem Stark, who took on the then king beyond the wall, Raymond Redbeard, about 75 years before the main story. And so, other than Rickon and Lyanna, that's really the only other Stark down there that has a statue that wasn't a lord or a king. In the main series, Winterfell. Of course, first and most famously, we in A Game of Thrones, we visit the crypts when King Robert Baratheon arrives at the castle, and he visits the tombs of Rickard, Brandon, and Lyanna with his old friend Ned. Jon at the wall tells Sam that he often dreams of the crypts and what he might find there. And of course, we're going to talk about that a little later. Ned dreams that the statues watch him and the dire wolves snarl at him. He hears and sees Lyanna saying, "Promise me, Ned." Bran and Rickon both to the crypt with their dire wolves in A Game of Thrones, saying that their father is down there. And of course, Master Lewin famously takes them down there before they discover Ned is dead. And that's really the only time the text tells us that Hodor is scared to go down there. So there may be something about Ned's spirit being down there that scared Hodor. We'll talk more about spirits and whether they're in the crypts. In A Clash of Kings, a stonemason carves the likeness of Ned for his tomb. And of course, Bran, Rickon, Hodor, Osha, and the direwolf Summer and Shaggy Dog hide down there from Theon Greyjoy. And also, interestingly and importantly, later on, Osha takes the iron sword Mikken made for Ned's statue, while Mira takes the one from Lord Rickard's statue, and Bran takes the one from his namesake, Uncle Brandon. And then Hodor takes a much older one. So those iron long swords that we mentioned, some of them have been removed. We think that that's going to be important down the road, so we'll talk about that as well tonight. And then in A Dance with Dragons, Bran's visions in the cave of the three-eyed crow features him seeing some of the Starks that he begins to remember their faces from the tomb. So he's seeing some of those old lords and old kings that he saw in the Winterfell crypts when he was a child there. And then, of course, we know that Theon Greyjoy escorts Lady Barbary Dustin down into the crypts. She wants to know where the entrance is to them, and she wants to see Brandon's statue. She wants to ask Theon a number of questions in the crypts, and she notices that many of these swords are missing. And later on, Theon, of course, refuses to take the spearwife Holly to the crypts in order to help Abel, who, of course, is Mance Rayder. So that's crypts in the main series. Those are the times that we are in the crypts. Of course, we'll talk about some dream sequences here in a moment. where John visits the crypts. Some eerie moments from the chapters, but those are the instances where a person physically goes into the crypts. Now, we talked a little bit about iron. Iron is a really important substance in the main series and in legend and folklore of our own world. So, in legends and folklore, iron is a weapon, a substance, a magical element that is used to ward against evil, to ward against evil spirits. So, just some of the examples that we've pulled for you tonight. An iron horseshoe above your door is meant to repel evil spirits, and it can also bring good luck. Cemeteries have an iron fence around them, which is meant to contain the souls of the dead. So that's why iron fences were put around cemeteries to begin with, which sounds a lot like what happens in the Winterfell crypts. Keep the souls of the dead contained. This is an interesting one. Burying an iron knife under your home's entrance is meant to keep witches from entering your home. And then finally, many cultures believed that placing iron beneath a crib would keep fairies from stealing your child, which is extremely creepy. But you can see that iron is a substance in our own world that seem to have very magical properties, and so we wanted to provide a few examples there, and there are hundreds of instances where iron in religious text or cultural texts are used for magical properties. But those are just a few that we wanted to share with you tonight, and I think kind of illustrate what George is using with his iron longswords in A Game of Thrones and the rest of the series. All right, so I want to open up this discussion now. I want to talk about the crypts, both as a setting for future events, the crypts as metaphor for John, especially, and then some of the creepier aspects of the crypts when it comes to some of the northern rituals. And I want to talk first about sacrifice. One of the things that we talked about a few episodes ago when we were focusing on House Blackwood, which of course is a famous house descended from the north, is the fact that one of the customs that House Blackwood adopts is they bury their dead beneath a weirwood tree. So they bury the dead Blackwoods beneath weirwood tree. That we talked about in that episode, that's kind of a adapted blood sacrifice custom. When we see some of the legends in the world book, when we see some of the legends in the main story, when we see some of the things that Bran witnesses in his visions, we see that there were sacrifices made by first men and by others to the heart trees. And so we talked about House Blackwood kind of changing the custom for over 1,000 years, and they bury their dead. Winterfell has a very large and very ancient weirwood tree. Is it possible that some of these roots go deep down into some of the older sections of the crypts? And um, is there a metaphor there for Starks burying their dead in these crypts, and in a way, kind of feeding the heart trees, feeding old gods, feeding um, the magical abilities that House Stark seems to possess. Micah, I want to start with you on that one.
All right. Hi everyone. Uh, yes, I could totally see the roots of the weirwood tree going down into the crypts of Winterfell. That would be a very cool detail that lends credence to the children of the forest knowing so much about the kings underneath Winterfell. And I want to give credit to Nessie from the Unspun Yarn in Here Be Dragons because during a discussion on the Nauticast Slack group, she actually spoke about this idea and said, could that be how the children of the forest know so much about the kings of Winterfell? Is that the roots go into the crypts? And I would absolutely buy that. Buy that. That would be a great detail to have in there. And it could be a great way for Bran to get some more of that neat, sweet exposition on the kings of Winterfell.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Oh,
Hey,
go
Brett, go
ahead. No,
ahead.
I was just gonna say I don't really have much else to add to that. So
I was going to say that there's definitely a lot of similarities between this cave and this kind of cavernous underworld that is the Winterfell crypts. And so one of the things that we talked about with Nessie, and again, thank you, Micah, for crediting her for that. But one of the things that we talked about in that group was the fact that perhaps the Winterfell crypts started. Let me back up here. We see other crypts throughout the story. There's not many of them, but there's one beneath the Sept of Baelor in King's Landing. It's likely that there are other crypts at other castles in Westeros. But one of the things that the Northerners do, is specifically in the Barrowlands, is they have these mounded burial tombs, which are very similar to Celtic burial mounds that exist across Ireland and Great Britain and other areas of Europe. Of course, our own country, Native Americans, use burial mounds as well. So it's an ancient custom. We see that in the North. What if the Winterfell crypts used to be a cave system, a series of tunnels, something like that under Winterfell, and the Starks kind of adopted burying their dead down there. I think that could be a possibility, and it could tie into Bloodraven's cave. Are there tunnels under Westeros connecting different areas? Are there a series of caves and streams? Heck, you know, this part of a ancient maze work. These ancient mazes that we see around Planetos. I just think there's so many possibilities with what Winterfell crypts could have been at one point, and through thousands of years, they became something different to House Stark. And I just think that's an interesting possibility, and I want to ask you guys if you have any thoughts on that.
Well, I actually think it's really interesting. To not specifically on the point you were making, but about the cave systems in general, and like they talk about at the Wall, Castle Black, that they use a cave system to get around during the winter, and I feel like in a lot of ways that could have also been why there was a cave system to begin with, is the harsh winters and staying underground, because just you're better protected from the cold. And it's the same thing, I think, with Bloodraven. That's the only way they can get away from the cold and north of the Wall.
Yep. We have caves in Dorne. That's really a place where the Dornish retreat when they were fighting with the Targaryens. Arianne comes across some as she's traveling north to the Stormlands. Yeah, Micah, what's your thought about the caves and in a perhaps a series of tunnels or mazes or underground rivers that
not that much different than what Cole said, but yeah, it is interesting that we have all these cave systems just littering Westeros.
which
Just yeah, it's just literally there's just so many cave systems that it's plausible they could be connected, or it's plausible that certainly some could be connected. I could definitely see like the Dornish wormways being connected, and maybe even the route in Gorn's Way up by the wall, where you have that series of labyrinth tunnels that go from beyond the wall into the gift.
yeah, I think
That could be connected to the Winterfell ones potentially.
yeah, I think a
It
lot
could.
of it probably started out as, just a cave system, and then a lot of it could be man-made too. So
Yeah.
like like it could be like a natural cave with added on,
But with also like with a lot of those caves up north, I mean, they could have very well been put in place by Bran the Builder, as kind of a defense as well against the others.
Maybe.
maybe.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, one of the things that happens in, and we'll talk a little more about that here in a minute, but one of the things that happens in season 8 is the crypts become a refuge. So perhaps they could have been designed that way, or they have a dual function that they serve both as a tomb for House Stark and a way to also preserve the living members of House Stark should the long night come again or whatever. So yeah, I think there's a lot of possibility there. So let's talk about the crypts, as a significant element for Stark. It's again I think we have one or two other crypts that are mentioned in the books, but there's no importance put upon them like there is for House Stark. I mean, this is a place that Ned goes to reflect, that the memory of House Stark lives on. The kids playing, all of these things are happening there. But let's focus in on John first, because I want to talk about a number of dreams that he has that let's talk about the dreams. Let's not speculate yet what they mean. Let's talk about let's share some of the dreams themselves. So one of the first he talks to Sam early on in um in a Game of Thrones. Yeah. About having the dream, and we mentioned that a little earlier, that he talks about it. I want to save one quote Game of Thrones until the end, because I think there's some importance there about what could happen in the crypts. But let's narrow in on these two quotes that are from A Storm of Swords. And he's talking to Sam here. So this is from Sam for A Storm of Swords. One says, "All my dreams are of the crypts, of the stone kings on their thrones. Sometimes I hear Rob's voice and my father's, as if they were at a feast. There's a wall between us, and I know that no place has been set for me." First of all, it's such a sad quote, because John feels like he's such an outsider in Winterfell, and is sometimes treated as such by some of the characters. But there's also, I think, a message to John in those dreams that, not necessarily that he's an outsider, he's something different. He's not a Stark. He's not a son of Ned Stark. He has something else to learn. So one of the things he also mentions in A Storm of Swords, and this comes from John 8 in A Storm of Swords, he dreamt he was back in Winterfell, limping past the Stone Kings on their thrones. Gray granite eyes turned to follow him as he passed. Their gray granite fingers tightened on the hilts of the rusted swords upon their laps. "You are no Stark," they mutter in heavy granite voices. "There is no place for you here. Go away." He walked deeper into the darkness. "Father?" he called. "Bran, Rickon." No one answered. Chill wind was blowing on his neck. "Uncle?" he called. "Uncle Benjen? Father! Please, Father, help me." Up above, he heard drums. "They're feasting in the great hall. I am not welcome there. I am no Stark, and this is not my place." His crutch slipped and he fell to his knees. The crypts were growing darker. "Light has gone out somewhere. Ygritte," he whispered, "forgive me, please." It was only a direwolf, gray and ghastly, spotted with blood, his golden eyes shining sadly through the dark. So, there's a lot going on in that quote specifically. Again, John's still feeling that he's not a Stark. He's not welcome in Winterfell. This is not his place. You can imagine that he's had this dream for a number of years. No wonder he wanted to join the Night's Watch and get out of Winterfell, because in his mind, it was literally telling him, "You don't belong here." There's also some foreshadowing in that quote about the Red Wedding, and that he hears the drums, and drums were likely a thing that happened in Winterfell when there were feasts, so it wouldn't seem out of place to John that he's hearing it. He knows that he can't go there, and then of course at the end he sees that dire wolf, gray and ghastly, spotted with blood. That has to be Grey Wind. um, and I think that that's just interesting that it's the crypts that call him down and show him this in a way. What do you all think about John's dreams, and how that, why the Stone Kings are talking to him, and why potentially his dreams continue to draw him down there?
Ooh, so where to start? Uh, I think the dreams hold a lot for John, especially with the confirmation of R plus L equals J by the show, which is almost definitely for sure in the books. In that Lyanna's tomb is down in the crypt, and I don't know exactly if that's what's calling him, but whatever is calling him down there, whether it be Bloodraven, is trying to lead him into learning about R plus L equals J. And that's my thought. There's there's from that aspect alone, there's a lot there, but there is a lot in this passage about how he connects to the Starks and his place in Winterfell.
Yeah, I never really considered the fact that it's probably Bloodraven uh doing some sort of, or maybe even Bran trying to get him down there. But yeah, I don't know. I don't really have much else
That's
to add to it,
it's
but
interesting that
yeah, it's just,
there are moments.
well, I was just going to say it's just one of those things. It's like I don't think it just seems like anytime there's something supernatural that happens, it's usually someone behind the scenes manipulating that, um, instead of it just being a thing that happens. You know.
Yeah, I mean we.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see. Sorry, Micah.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say we rarely see magic happen like in our face. We usually see the outcome of magic or it in the process, and then we get the
Mhm.
explanation of it later on. This could be an example of that, where we get like Blood Raven green seeing, and then Dance of Dragons come along, and we are taught green seeing firsthand.
Yeah, I think that that's a possibility. I also think we have to consider that John is also not a magical being, but he has powers just like Bran and others. He doesn't have the um, probably the level of ability that Bran has or will have. He has his own skill that he doesn't yet know, and he's only probably in the Winds of Winter going to really begin to realize. So part of this could be him, he himself, his power, manifesting in the crypts, showing him the crypts, trying to tell him you're not a Stark or there's something important down here. One of the things that's interesting with these dreams, though, is that they never seem to conclude, right? In that one quote we read, there's a wall on there sees a wall or he feels there's a wall he can't break through to get to Ned and Rob. He hears there's a feast, but he knows that he can't go dine with them, to feast with them, to drink with them. The light seems to go out, but it's a dire wolf that descends upon him. There's always something that kind of stops him. And we'll talk about another quote here in a little bit where he wakes up scared from one of these dreams. But another one of the things that we talked about, Micah, um, is will John get to finish this dream? Will he get to um, complete the dream and find out a little more? Will the Stone King speak to him? Will he speak to someone else in the crypt? And I think that ties in to the potential John's spirit to go to the crypts, right? I mean, that's a possibility that could happen. As we talked earlier, Bran and Rickon sense Ned's death before they find out the Raven, from a message from from a Raven, Ned is dead. They're drawn to the crypts, saying their father's down there. So, did Ned's spirit go to the crypts? There are other Stark spirits down there. Will John go to crypts? Will he know that he's in the crypts? Will he know that he's dead? Will he think it's a dream? I want to talk a little bit about this because I think that this could be a substantial event in the Winds of Winter should it happen. It also has the potential to be very eerie, very scary. Just this, you know, and you can just imagine John's spirit walking in the crypts and seeing these Stone Kings and talking to them and seeing Ned and Lyanna, Bran, all of these people. What do you think about that, Micah? What do you think that possibility is?
I think it's super interesting. It could be like you could have this link between all the Starks, given how old the Starks are and how much warging they have the potential for. Like each of the kids, since they had a direwolf, they had more or less some form of warging ability. And like with generations going down, all the Starks could be somehow intimately connected spiritually. So I think through some vague warging capability, yeah, Bran and Rickon definitely sensed that Ned was gone. And they might be able to even sense if John is gone. I'm not entirely sure if they sense if Rob was gone. I think they did. I think Bran did at one point, but I don't quite remember. Um, but yeah, with John having been shanked at the end of A Dance with Dragons, we could totally see Bran have a fit, or Rickon be even like his wild self could be up to the max because of it. It's
Um,
certainly interesting.
so Hey Travis, what was the like the initial question? I was distracted with this technology.
I was talking about it. Is there the potential for John to complete his dreams?
Yeah.
Finally find out why the Stone Kings, think that he shouldn't be in Winterfell. Talk to Ned, talk to Lyanna, whatever. Will his spirit, he's dead in A Dance with Dragons at the end, or going to be dead. We all believe and assume his
Yeah.
spirit. I think it's going to go into Ghost, right? I mean, I think everyone
Yeah.
kind of thinks that, and that would be cool. But is there the potential for his spirit at some point to walk in the Winterfell crypts? It could be a physical manifestation that his spirit actually goes there, or it could be his, his unconscious, his subconscious completing the dream. And so he finally, and kudos to our friend um, Vanessa Cole, VK Cole artist, for talking about this. She was the one that mentioned it to me that she thinks that John will get to complete his dream at some point. Now, whether that's when he's alive or dead, that's to be determined. But I
It's
just think it's such a it's something George has set up since the beginning of the series. And so, what do you think about that, Brett?
I I kind of it's it's weird because I would think he's going to get further into the dream when he's dead. I definitely think he's going to visit, but I think he might be awoken before he gets to complete that. And I think maybe after he someone confirms some like or comes to him revealing his identity, then next thing it'll be confirmed or whatnot, and then he'll be able to finish the dream. I think that's sort of how to play out.
Okay, yeah, I
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, I mean, I could see him completing the dream when he's dead. Also, but then maybe he still won't know exactly what it is, and it could go that route too.
Yeah, I think that that's a really good point.
Like he wouldn't be
You
able to
know,
make sense of it. Yeah.
right, right. Depending on what he's told, if he's told in this dream, if Lyanna starts talking to him, okay, well, why is my aunt Lyanna speaking to me? Um, I think that brings up another good point about the crypts and the theories of what's inside the crypts. Beyond the
Mm.
statues, beyond tunnels, beyond spirits, all of these things. There's a lot of discussion in the fandom about what is in the crypts that could prove to John his Targaryen lineage, or a signal to him that, okay, something's up here. What is this? And so I want to spend just a little bit of time on some of the possibilities of items, physical items that could be in the crypts that either prove John is a Targaryen or signal to him that something is going on here. So I think that there are three things. There's probably four, but I want to save one of them for kind of a different discussion. So the first three things are Rhaegar's harp. There's a lot of discussion about Rhaegar's harp is was put in the crypts or put in Lyanna's tomb or whatever. Lyanna's bridal cloak. Um, if someone would see that, they would say, okay, Lyanna was married. Well, who was she married to? And a Targaryen ring, and specifically fans zero in on the ring that Egg in the Sworn Sword. Is it the Sworn Sword or is it the Mystery Knight? One of the Duncan Egg novellas that he.
Sworn sword.
Okay, yeah. So could one of those three things, or all three of those things, or two of those three things, be in the crypts to prove John's identity as a Targaryen?
I
Okay.
don't know.
But
Did Brett want to go first, or was I going first?
you go ahead and go first.
All right.
Unless you had
Uh,
some.
Mm.
Okay.
I could definitely see, like, if I were to pick any of the items, I would definitely say Lyanna's bridal cloak could totally be down there. But that would be verification for a lot of theories, and it would really it would just really uh alleviate those plots in terms of she married Rhaegar and then had Jon, but also she married Rhaegar, which is a big deal.
I,
Just a little bit.
I like that. I think that makes more sense. I really want it to be uh, Aegon's or Egg's ring, though. I that's my favorite one. I just like when uh, that story gets tied into the main story and vice
Yeah,
versa. Yeah.
I wouldn't say the signet ring is impossible.
Yeah, I just don't know where that would make sense thematically,
Yeah,
as much as the other stuff. But anything?
yeah.
I have a question about, like, so did they get married, right? Liana and Rhaegar. Did they get married before they had the child? Or
Well, that's up in the air.
that's what I'm saying. Is John even a Targaryen, or is he still a bastard
I
under
would say
those
they would
laws
have had to
anyway?
get married before, like right after they eloped.
I think all the context clues kind of point to that. It's still sort of an unanswered question, but I think the show that's like one of the things the show got off of the you know the list the list of whatever, yeah, that George gave them. So,
Yeah.
but I mean, it could they
The
could always be wrong.
Could be. I mean, I think that there'll probably be some proof, and kind of like the show. Um, the show had kind of multiple events uh, prove John's heritage. You had the fact that Rand saw that Anna gave birth to a baby and realized it was John, and Ned brought him back and claimed that he was his child. Rand saw that Rhaegar and Lyanna got married. Then Sam proved it by finding the document. I don't think it's going to go exactly like that in the books, but it was an easy way for the show to convey that you John is a legitimate child of these um, two individuals. I think the thing for me to I'd call sorry.
I had something to add to that. I think in a very George R. R. Martin fashion, though, in the world, when it's proven to at least John that he is or isn't a Targaryen, but if that is the case, like, I think in a lot of ways it's going to be a lot harder to prove that in the books than the show would have it. Like, there'd be so many people questioning whether that's legitimate or not anyway. And
Well, especially too. I
Yeah.
mean, if especially too coming after, Fagon.
Vagon, and then Daenerys is still there, so I think that's an uphill battle regardless. Which that's who John is anyway. So it's always an uphill
Right.
battle for him.
And I just wanted
And
to
Micah.
add. Yeah, I just wanted to add. Some people our guys are talking in the chat.
Oh yeah. I was about to.
I just wanted to point out. Nessie from the Unspun Yarn says that I still like Lyanna being buried with a token of John's birth. That was commonly done when a woman died in childbirth, and that's another possibility. And I also really like Amy's comment about what about a letter from Ray Ray being like, "Yo, it's your daddy. I might die. So here's a letter saying you are the true king. Yay!"
I mean, that's quite okay. So imagine you can see that kind of set up in the books, right? If Rob's will arrives proclaiming John as king in the north, He also finds a letter saying, "Oh, you're the rightful heir to the Iron Throne." That's that right there immediately sets up a conflict between Stark and Targaryen identity. So, I doubt there's probably a letter saying that because I think that would be too much concrete proof. As Cole was saying, there's that possibility, and I think that brings up to step back to these items that we discussed: Rhaegar's harp, Lyanna's bridal cloak, the Targaryen ring. The focus has to be on John finding out that he's a Targaryen, or that he's son of Lyanna, or that he's the son of Rhaegar, or that he's the son of Rhaegar and Lyanna. And then if these things are there, they then become verification to him. I think if it's the opposite, it cheapens the reveal. If he finds a ring and all of a sudden he thinks, "Oh, well, I'm a Targaryen," that doesn't like that's an illogical step to take, right? He could think that that's a spoil of war that Ned brought back. If he finds Lyanna's bridal cloak, okay, well, Lyanna got married. Who did my aunt Lyanna marry? Rhaegar's harp. Oh, here's a harp. Okay, well, it has to be if there's something there, I'm not. That's not criticizing the theories. I love the theories. I think that they're astounding. And when I first came on to those theories a few years ago, I was like, whoa, I didn't even think that there could be something in the crypt like this.
Yeah, same. Yeah.
It has to mean something to John, and him finding those on some kind of treasure hunt or whatever just doesn't have the power of Bran telling him, or Sam telling him, or a dream telling him, something like that.
Well,
There and you guys are right. There's the possibility that people won't believe it, even if that. But you might have people like Howland Reed or Ashara Dane, if she's still alive, telling him, "No, this is true. This happened. You are their son." So I think that's interesting. One more thing that I'll add, and then you guys can make some points, and then we can move on to the next thing. Is if Ned's putting all these items in the crypts, it he agreed to hide John, probably to keep him safe. Putting a bunch of Targaryen items down in the crypts, especially in Lyanna's tomb or around Lyanna's tomb, probably isn't the smartest idea. And Ned was not a dummy.
Oh no, he wasn't.
All right, anything else
No,
on those?
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to double back down on, like, yeah, he could find these items and in that dream, and yeah, just not even he doesn't he won't make sense of it until you know Bran kind of you know reveals it, and then he might physically go to the tomb and find those items.
I just thought of an
Would
idea. What if it's Bran?
Hit us, Micah.
What if it's Bran who helps John complete his crypt dream?
Yeah, I
Like,
mean,
what if they're both dreaming, and then Bran is like, "Here, I'll lead you down this
And
path." And
I kind of think that something like that'll happen. Yeah.
I think also
that gets.
Sorry, you can go ahead.
I was just gonna say that gets back to Brett's earlier point that maybe some of this is related to Bloodraven or Bran or someone kind of pushing him along. Go ahead, Cole.
Well, also when after, as Micah put it, after John gets shanked, like he's the main speculation right now is he's going into Ghost, right? I mean, what's to stop Bran from communicating to him then? Because I mean, it's already been seen that Bran can kind of communicate to the direwolves very easily. Well, I mean, that's kind of the Starks in general. They can.
yeah,
Direwolves
I
are
definitely think
connected.
Bran could be trying to contact John a lot through the Winds of Winter.
Well, and also
And that could
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Also, what I was gonna say too is like with these like little treasures or trinkets in the dreams, maybe something like that will pop up in a dream, but will hold no real meaning until he can go back and then connect those dots as well.
Possible, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that could certainly do, especially if especially if it's Bloodraven who wants to send more dreams to John to lead him towards it. He would know specifically about the Targaryen signet ring, or even Rhaegar's harp from probably watching Maester Aemon.
Yeah. Okay, I think that was a good discussion on what could be in the crypts for John. I think there's
Mhm.
another possibility of something down there that could be tied to John, but it could also be something that precipitates the really awful events that's left to come in the Winds of Winter, and that is dragon eggs. There could be um, 1 egg, 2 egg, 3 eggs. You know, who knows how many? But it's I think it's in the Fire and Blood. It may also be in the World Book. That at the beginning of the Dance of the Dragons, Jacaerys Valerion, riding Vermax, comes to Winterfell. I think specifically to ask the Starks to support the Blacks in Rhaenyra in the Dance of the Dragons. And I think it's Mushroom who says that the dragon laid eggs in the crypts. And is it Maester Gildane who writes and says, no, that didn't happen, or whatever? It might not be Gildane, but it was another Maester or whatever.
One of them
So
dudes.
yeah, one of those Maesters, one
Some
of those
old
old
guy.
guys, old white guys. So there's the possibility that there are dragon eggs down there. Now, if there are dragon eggs down there, again, question becomes, what does that mean? Like that doesn't, if they go down there and they find dragon eggs, it doesn't mean anything to John until he knows that he's a Targaryen. One of the things, and we're really shouting out our friends here tonight, because we talk day 24/7 with our friends in the fandom about these theories and possibilities. So another shout out to our friend Frank, who's been a repeat guest on Planetos podcast. There is a possibility that Stannis, Melisandre hold these dragon eggs if they're there. And perhaps after taking Winterfell, one of the reasons that he leaves Winterfell, beyond Rob's will arriving and proclaiming someone as king, or him thinking, well, I've got Winterfell in the bag, Lyman Manderley is supporting me, whoever, whatever. I don't need to stay here. And he returns to the Night Fort. Is the possibility that he finds these eggs and he takes them, and the sacrifice of Shireen is brought about because he wants to wake dragons from eggs. Now, whether that's as the others are attacking and he thinks that he needs to do that, or it's something that he wants to do earlier on, so he has a dragon and he's ready to, ready to use it to defend his claim to the throne or the realm or whatever.
How did I not know about that theory? That's a
yeah.
I never. Yeah. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I heard the theory. This theory was one of the earliest. The theory that there are dragon eggs is a very early theory. It's only been recently that I had heard possibility that Stannis takes it and says, "Okay, well, I'm going to," that image begins very the beginning of Stannis's introduction. Melisandre wanting to wake dragons from stone. So the only other time that we see dragons wake from stone in the story is Daenerys waking her 3 children from the stone eggs. So Stannis as a cautionary tale for both Jon and Daenerys, I think there's a great possibility that there are eggs down there, and he does try to um, use blood magic to get a dragon um, to defend the realm or whatever. I mean, it's going to be horrific, but what do you guys think about that possibility?
I really like that possibility. It would definitely lend credence to Stannis sacrificing Shireen and then absolutely nothing happening whatsoever. Like Alessandra would have the egg and be like, "Yes, this is it. This is my time too. Why is nothing happening at
Or
all?"
I mean, or the eggs do hatch and then they have baby dragons that are worthless for years and years.
Or
Yeah.
they are born and then
Or
die
they
in the
just
cold.
Oh,
That would suck.
yeah, yeah.
that would be
Well,
horrible.
well, I guess they'd be tiny though. So,
It'd be very
but
small. Yeah, I mean, but he doesn't know that. I mean, nobody like dragons haven't been around for 150 or 60 years, so they don't know, how long it would take them to grow or how powerful they would be even as babies.
I,
Um,
I mean, also, would Stannis even find dragon eggs in the crypt? He doesn't seem like one who would be. Well, maybe. Maybe he goes into the
Well-
crypt to find like alternative strategies for the castle and stuff. But
so there's a couple possibilities I think there. So one goes back to our earlier discussion of, are there tunnels beneath Winterfell, and specifically, are there tunnels that are connected to the crypts? So the conventional theory is twofold: that Bran is going to help lead Stannis or Theon or whoever back into Winterfell using the gaps in the wall. Not the gaps in the wall, but the way he was able to get through the walls of Winterfell. So there's the possibility that Bran leads them into Winterfell. There's also the possibility that Stannis takes Bolton, Frey uniforms, surcoats, etc., and tends to die and dresses his men up, and the Manderleys lead them back into Winterfell, and then they reveal themselves and take Winterfell. But there's a possibility that maybe they come through a tunnel or something like that. I mean, I think that that's probably harder to happen. But Mance Rayder is in Winterfell right now, and is going down, wants Theon to show him the crypts for some reason. Whether that's because he wants to retreat there, again, remember, Mance Rayder is pretending to be a singer called Abel, which is, twist some letters around and you get Bael the Bard, which is that very famous northern legend of singer who comes into Winterfell, takes the daughter of the Lord Stark, hides her in the crypts, and then puts her and her baby back in their bed because he's the father. So there's the possibility that Mance is going to hide in the crypts and find something down there, or he's specifically looking for something in the crypts already. There's the discussion of, is he looking for the real Horn of Winter down there? Is there something else he's looking for? Is he just trying to hide there while evading the Boltons? I mean, I think there's a lot of possibilities. I would say perhaps if Melisandre comes to Winterfell, she may be the ones to, sense them, feel their presence and go down and get them. I'm not sure Melisandre's going to do that. She's probably going to have a lot to do with Jon at the Wall, and of course, Khaleesi and party are probably going to the Nightford. But I think the possibility is, probably the likelihood is, that the Mance finds them. What do you guys think about that?
I I think there's a lot of possibilities. Like any of those could be true. I also just thought of something, which I'm sure it's been thought of before, but isn't Danny drawn to Drogon's egg a lot? Like in the first book, it's been a while, but maybe that's what's calling to John. Maybe it is his every Targaryen baby gets the a dragon's egg, so that could be the egg sort of calling to him, and maybe yeah, he gets the egg, and then things go bad, and then Stannis gets a hold of it. But yeah, I think
I mean, that's possible. Yeah,
yeah.
that's possible.
Yeah, it's possible, definitely.
Yeah, I just kind of
Yeah.
remembered like Danny was always like drawn to like Drogon's egg for whatever reason. So um, that could be something. That could be why John's having those weird dreams. So
Yeah.
I still think it's someone manipulating it behind the scenes, but you know,
Yeah. Yeah, with Mance, I could totally see him walking out of the crypts and being like, "Look at what I found. Also, I'm still alive."
I'm alive and I have dragon eggs. I am the king.
I'm alive.
Yeah. Unrelated, I'm also alive.
Yeah.
I found the horn of winter and some dragon eggs, and
I made breakfast.
and I know John's a Targaryen. I mean,
He just knows everything.
Could you cook a dragon's egg? Would they even?
well, they're like stone. I mean, could you use a dragon egg for like a massage? Like you could heat it up and
Oh, like those
my
rocks.
like the
God.
heated rocks.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if a dragon's egg would cook though, because they're fire resistant.
No, I think it's
so.
made of.
You would actually
No, I'm talking about
accidentally
a
hatch the egg.
fresh dragon's egg.
Well,
Oh,
how
a
do you know?
fresh egg.
Well, is
Yeah.
a fresh egg? How do you know a fresh egg isn't stone to begin with?
That's true. I
Right.
I don't. Anyways,
We need more egg lore.
anyways, we
Egg
derailed.
yeah.
Has
It's,
someone
make-
tried to eat an egg, a dragon egg, to become a dragon?
You would think
I
somebody
don't
would
think
tried.
that that's happened.
Like one of the crazy Targaryen people.
that-
Yeah,
I-
I don't remember that one.
It's,
Well,
I would
if
believe
Arion-
if Arion did
Yeah.
try that,
Yeah.
he just never told anyone.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, if he had an egg.
He may have broke a tooth or something and was like, okay, this isn't gonna work.
Oh yeah, he did have an egg.
He
yeah.
tried that before he tried the wildfire.
Yeah.
Um,
And now that this conversation is derailed.
it definitely has. All right, so let's I think
the
the
Starks.
yeah,
Hold
so
on.
I think the biggest thing with the crypts is the fact that
Oh,
no matter what might be down there, or what their significance means to certain members of House Stark, it's the fact that while this is an eerie, spooky place, it's also a place that keep the legend of the Starks forever, right? These statues there, Bran especially. Bran, I think if I'm remembering this correctly, he knows all of the statues. He knows all of the kings. Okay, he probably doesn't know all of them because there's thousands and thousands of tombs, but he names all of them off in the story, both early on in the series and then later on in the series. So I think that's one of the powers of the crypts, is the fact that the Stark legacy will go on. I think it's a metaphor for the fact that the Starks will survive. Their memory, their power, all of that. We still have Ned's bones that are probably going to make it back to Winterfell. at some point. He'll be buried there. He'll be entombed there. His memory will go on, not just because his bones are there, but because of the lessons he taught. And I think that that's sort of what's conveyed in the conversations between um, Theon and Barbary Dustin in A Dance with Dragons. Both of them, in a lot of ways, long to have been Starks. And of course, Barbary is going down there potentially, as a theory suggests, potentially to um, um, find proof that Wyman Manderley is telling the truth, that Rickon and Bran are alive. That's one of the theories surrounding why she has Theon take her down there, and why she points out that one of the swords are missing. But I think we all agree that the crypts, again, dark, they're cold, but there's lasting memory in them. There's a power, there's a resonance there that will kind of go on forever. Now we want to talk about, we hyped this up as a Halloween special. I want to talk about the potentially scary moments that could happen in the crypts. I think we have to talk specifically about the White Walkers and the potential for them to raise dead. We know that they have that power. We know that they can do that. I want to read this quote from John 7, A Game of Thrones, and I want you to listen to this. Last night he had dreamt the Winterfell dream again. He was wandering the empty castle, searching for his father, descending into the crypts. Only this time the dream had gone further than before. In the dark he'd heard the scrape of stone on stone. When he turned, he saw that the vaults were opening, one after the other. As the dead kings came stumbling from their cold black graves, John had woken in pitch dark, his heart hammering.
Dun, dun,
Out.
dun.
Dun, 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 yes. Again, that can be interpreted that they're coming for John, and that they're coming to drive him out of Winterfell because he doesn't belong there. But given the fact that the White Walkers will likely get through the wall, and they'll come to final conflict with the living, Winterfell is on their path, no matter how far south they go. Is there a possibility that they raise the dead in Winterfell?
It's interesting because is Brandon and Brandon Stark and Rickard, did their bones ever make it back up to be buried in the crypts, or did they just are those
I believe
statues?
so.
Did they get them? Because
I think so.
okay,
I think,
because
I think they
Yeah,
did
I
get 'em
think
back.
it's interesting because those are the two iron swords that are missing. Those two graves.
I was actually
tombs.
about to say something about that too. Is this may not be a thing, but if iron is meant to keep the spirits in and to defend them from the spirits, is the only ones that rise the ones without the iron swords.
Which is interesting enough is Rickard and Brandon. But I don't
and
know.
some really old king.
Yeah, I'm
right,
not.
the one that Hodor takes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Some real old guy. Probably someone important at one point in time.
Yeah, I feel like that. If any of them do rise, I do think it would be the ones who died recently, who would be barely just skeletons, as Aaron says in the chat. because the really old King's Winter at this time will just be dust.
Yeah,
So there's
yeah,
nothing
that
really
makes
coming
sense.
back unless people get hit in the face by dust.
But yeah, I mean, I think
Yeah.
I think it is a possibility though that you know, well, yeah, I guess I don't know. I don't know how realistic George is going to go with it. If the K or if the tomb has magical properties, I don't know. So, or they
Yeah,
somehow were mummified. Yeah, I mean, it's always a
I,
possibility.
yeah, I agree with you all. I think where they're buried is likely to preserve um, more of the body. We're talking thousands and thousands of years old for some of these. So Aaron is right. They're going to be dust, most of them. Additionally, we to my knowledge, the show is a little different, right?
Yeah,
To my
yeah,
knowledge, I haven't seen the whites that are skeletons in the books. Not that I remember. Most of them are recently dead. There's some tissue still on them. They other than being
yeah.
Well,
stabbed or whatever, they appear pretty. Go ahead, Cole.
well, also like the cold preserves bodies too. So
That's what I was saying. That the fact that um, the crypts are the coldest part of Winterfell. I mean, Winterfell is cold, but remember, there's a heating system that runs through Winterfell. The hot springs
Mm-hmm.
keep of Winterfell warm, and the crypts are usually very cold. That helps to preserve the bodies, though. But I think we're talking thousands of years old, and I can't imagine. I do think the iron swords, to our earlier discussion about iron being um, um, a magical element or a religious or cultural element in our own world. I think that there's a reason George puts them there. So
Yeah.
there's that possibility that if the White Walkers get to Winterfell and are able to raise the dead, we could see a few of these kings, these lords resurrect. We saw that in the show, so it's a possibility.
Yeah,
Um,
I
and
was gonna say.
George loves horror, so
Mhm.
he's gonna love to amp that up and make it Starks returning to attack their family members. That's going to be something that he probably can't resist.
Yeah,
I would definitely.
uh, I was just gonna say real quick, like, do y'all think that's something D&D got from George, or is that something you think maybe they made up?
I think it's something they made up.
I could see it being something that they made up.
Okay.
But
Honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I can
Yeah, I
too,
could
or
too.
like a fan, because it's a fan theory. I don't know if they look at fan theories or not, but it seems like they wanted to hit a lot of fan service,
mhm.
and yeah, so
I would think it would
I mean,
be.
it's a cool.
I would think that it would be interesting if the one Starks who do come back as undead whites to attack, say, John, would be the ones who were against Rhaegar kidnapping Lyanna.
hmm,
I think that would be very interesting.
yeah,
Oh, that's a good possibility that Brandon and Rick, especially Brandon. I mean, that's going to be significant if he is revived. I think the other possibility, yeah, and I agree with you all. I think it's probably a show invention. But I also kind of lean toward, man, can George pass that up? Can he pass up the fact that some of these crypts, these tombs just break open and these zombies come out? I think that there's obviously going to be an army of the dead coming for Winterfell. So
yeah,
maybe he doesn't need to do that because he has that. I think the other thing, though, um, maybe we'll end this discussion about the dead rising. Other possibility, and I want to give a shout out to our friend B Word, Beth, who's been on the podcast before, one of the early episodes of our podcast. One of the other possibilities is, could these Starks rise to defend Winterfell? Could they rise to defend their family? You know, again, the fact that many of them are dust and bones still equate, or still have to factor into this equation, because, you know, what can they do to defend? But I want to point out one thing that I think is a possibility, and it comes from Lord of the Rings. And, you know, George is a huge fan of Lord of the Rings, and there's a lot of elements from Lord of the Rings in A Song of Ice and Fire. And if you remember, if you've read Lord of the Rings, or if you've just seen the movie, one of the famous scenes in Return of the King is Aragorn goes on this path called the Paths of the Dead to call upon the service of the men of the mountains. It's basically an army of the dead. They're spirits. They are individuals who rejected Isildur's call in, I think, the first war of the ring, not the first war of the ring, but the first battle against Sauron. And Isildur, after winning against Sauron, curses them, and they die, and they're entombed in this mountain, basically. So Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli, and a number of other individuals ride this Paths of the Dead, and Aragorn, as Isildur's heir, is able to get them to fulfill their oath and become instrumental in winning winning at the, I think it's the Battle of the Pelennor Fields at Minas Tirith, in Gondor, and you know, helps them defeat Sauron's armies there. So perhaps our talk about the spirits earlier in the crypts, perhaps these Stark spirits rise to defend Winterfell, rise to defend Stark. You know, I think that gets. I'm gonna throw cold water on my theory. I think that gets a little too heavy fantasy for Song of Ice and Fire, but you also have ice demons and an army of the dead outside walls.
Yeah, why
you know.
not? Why not?
I also
Why not? Why not?
I read something in the comments right now from Pedro, and I think it's really cool because he was saying, like, what if they did it like Mormont style, where it's like only a couple of them rise, but try to kill like the leader, you know, like John or whoever's like at Winterfell defending it. Like, what if they, like, a few of them rise just to go and try and kill him?
That could be.
I think that would be pretty cool.
That would be pretty cool.
Like John or Danny or someone.
Probably John.
That makes. I mean, that makes sense.
Brand.
Undead Brandon trying to kill John.
Even,
that'd be cool.
I mean, or even Stannis by this point. Like, it could very well be Stannis.
Maybe that's how he goes.
Stannis undead.
Mm-hmm.
No, like the undead rising to kill to
Stannis.
go. As it actually fits with Stannis.
Please don't do that to me.
Yeah, but it does fit. It does fit with
Hey, Travis,
Stannis
Stannis
too.
is gonna die. Sorry.
From his shadow assassins.
No. I mean, don't bring him back from the dead.
Oh. Yeah.
Undead Stannis. He already looks dead.
Frank can't handle that. Frank will drop dead if that.
Oh yeah, he would definitely.
Anyway.
But another possibility maybe too is, the after the wall falls or whatever, the White Walkers or some of the undead, not White Walkers, others, whatever, they go, they use the cave system to get into the tombs and attack from there. And then you could have
Yes.
the dead
And
Starks
that's
rising to defend the cave while like Bran or Jon or someone's
yeah,
down there.
that's something that was theorized in the lead up to season 8 when previews, were focused on, Jon and Sansa and Arya down in the crypts. I mean, I remember the discussion around season 8 was like, oh my God, what if the White Walkers, that's how they're able to get into Winterfell? And, I think that could have been really cool. So yeah, there's the possibility that it could rise to defend against that. I don't. Again, I don't know how Bran's powers will manifest. If there are spirits in the crypts, Bran able to communicate with them and ask them to help. That kind of gets into parallels between Aragorn and Frodo from Lord of the Rings and Jon and Bran, especially now that we know that Bran's going to be king. I think there's a lot of possibilities there. There's a lot of things that George can do at Winterfell when the White Walkers arrive that could really just blow our mind. And I think personally, seeing these old Stark kings rise the dead, whether they're attacking the Starks or they're defending the Starks, would be a pretty cool element to read on the page.
It would also be interesting, like visually, to see kind of like these old dead kings also standing with maybe a dire wolf or two, or getting attacked by a dire wolf or two.
That thought probably crossed George's mind as something very cool to have in.
That is pretty cool. Yeah. I mean, and is there a possibility Bran may warg into some of these old dead kings? Like he may be the one that does it, and he kind of makes that come true instead of them just rising. He
fighting for control over.
It could be that, like when he's green seeing, either in the crypts or in the past, he could even meet some of these dead kings and actually like speak with them or just learn from them.
That would be cool, like Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yeah.
Or like if lives.
Or like if he's wandering through the crypts on an astral plane, he could run into a few of them as they just kind of hide out in there.
You know what? I'm down. I'm down for that.
Yeah. One of the other things that I really like about the crypts is if there is a maze down there, or if there is a series of tunnels, the possibility that we do see Bran walking there on the astral plane, walking there in a dream, whatever it is. I would love to see, there's this image from the House of the Undying. Dany is being pursued. We don't know if it's a monster. We don't know if it's her. We don't know if it's one of the warlocks, but fire is going out behind her, and she's told to, correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, but she's told to always take the door on the right. Always take the door on the right.
Yeah, always take the door on the right.
And so that's kind of a maze-like order, never, always go to the right, never go to the left, always go to the right. I'd love to see, and it's one thing that the show didn't do because Euron Greyjoy was a completely different character in the show, but a potential, battle between Bran and Euron on the astral plane, and I'd love to see astral plane manifest itself as the Crypts of Winterfell, and Bran's like being chased by Euron or having to defeat Euron down there, something like that. I don't know. That's kind of a pie in the sky hope, but I think it would just be so visually stunning because Bran seeks sanctuary in the crypts. You know, Bran is constantly thinking about the crypts. He knows all of the kings down there. He can, you know, look at their statue and tell you who they are. You know, all of these things, and so it would be a pretty frightening experience for him to be trapped in the crypts, to be pursued in the crypts by a Euron-like figure. So I'm kind of hoping that's another one of my hopes of something George uses in the books.
Also, like going back to what you're saying though, like, you know, Bran using the crypts, it's a maze and he's running from Euron, but you know, also he's in the crypts as a Stark, like, you know, maybe those Stark spirits will project themselves in more of that astral plane of defending them against Euron.
That's yeah,
That
yeah,
could-
absolutely.
Yeah,
That's a good point.
yeah, that'd be cool.
That
Like
would be
It
neat.
could be where they see them.
maybe maybe it's not more of a, it's not a physical, they physically rise. It's more they are in that realm, and their spirits defend.
It even goes back to the, you know, that theory of like the weirwood trees, like their roots grow into the crypts, you know, and that's where Bran, you know, draws his powers, those trees. So
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yep. They just float up to Euron and say the way is shut.
you
Yeah,
you shall not pass.
way is shut. Yeah, yeah. All right, this is a great discussion. I again,
Oh yes, this was
to the
great.
viewers out there, we apologize for the late start and the technical difficulties, but
At least we got it figured out.
This was
Woohoo,
well
first
worth it
stream.
and a lot of
We
fun.
had to have
Yeah,
something.
first stream.
Yeah, we were
And
glad to see everyone here.
happy Halloween to everybody as well.
Ah yes,
Yeah,
happy
yeah.
Halloween.
Trick or treat.
Don't take a torch when you go to explore the crypts. It's way more fun that way.
Is there? Sorry, quick question. Is there any candy in Game of Thrones?
Well, I mean, there's like
Well, that explains why Westeros sucks so
the,
bad.
the
Yeah.
lemon cakes. I mean, it's not technically
It's
candy,
more like
but-
cake, but like is
It's
there
like
any,
the closest you'll get, though.
you know, how are they gonna trick or treat?
Yeah,
I think
have
they're more
a
into
Brett. We talked
feasting.
about this. Like they don't seem to celebrate. They celebrate the harvest feast, which seems to be kind of a combination between
it's like, yeah, it's
Halloween and
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving. Yeah, something like that.
Well, that's kind of like, you know, we kind of do that too. Is like that those like fall festivals and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think, I don't know. Like, I think that's pretty cool though, because like they talk about having like masquerade balls and stuff, and which, you know, so that, you know, they sort of have their own little Halloween thing going on.
Yeah.
All right. So we want to just kind of leave you all with kind of how we see the crypts. I mean, we've talked about all these theories. We've talked about
Honey locust.
characters, the significance.
Ooh, yummy.
Sorry.
Oh,
So
that's out the honey
Careful. I
locust.
heard, I
Strong
heard
bell,
that they can give you some poisoning sometimes.
We well, you
strong
know,
bell
we
wasp,
we
just
eat
going
chocolate.
around testing them.
Was it chocolate grasshoppers? So you know.
Yeah, that's true. So we kind of see the crypts kind of a underworld type setting in this story. It's a netherworld. It's a place between life and death, and I think that you know really harkens to the fact that it's a concept straight out of fiction and mythology, especially Greek and Roman mythology. I mean, caves are important. Caves and tombs are important to a lot of cultures, but you see so many so many myths in Greek and Roman mythology that really deal with the fact that an opening descending down is descending into the underworld, either whether it's hell or it's a netherworld or whatever. The crypts are dark and they're spooky, and there's a lot of frightening moments that happen there, and there's a lot of frightening moments that are like to come. But it's a place of memory. These kings and lords of Westeros of the North are resting there. As we said earlier, the Starks will go on, and I think the crypts will be part of that. Not only literally in the fact that they'll be entombed there, and their memory will last there, but figuratively, Starks will go on. And I think that's a pretty powerful image that George creates. So I want to just leave with this quote. This doesn't apply specifically to the crypts. This quote isn't said about the crypts, but the language is really evocative of the crypts. And this is something that Theon says or thinks in A Dance with Dragons, The Prince of Winterfell. And this is specifically while he's taking fake Arya, Jane Poole, to her wedding to Ramsay Bolton. And just listen to this imagery that George uses. Mists were so thick that only the nearest trees were visible. Beyond them stood tall shadows and faint lights. Candles flickered beside the wandering path. Back amongst the trees, pale fireflies floating in a warm gray soup. It felt like some strange underworld, some tireless place between the worlds. The damned wandered mournfully for a time, before finding their way down to whatever hell their sins had earned them. I think that's so evocative of what we've talked about here tonight, that spirits walk in the crypts, the spirits survive in the crypts. You
imagine.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, way to pick a paragraph there. That's a great little bit.
Yeah. And as you're walking along these columns in the crypts, there are lights, there are faint lights. You're carrying a torch, all this, and as that quote says, tall shadows are kind of standing off to the side. Well, that's very evocative of the statues in the crypts. It's also kind of evocative of the White Walkers and the others.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
and so I think you get this blend of imagery that George is using to kind of describe this netherworld, this world between worlds, this place of death and memory and everything. And I think it's done really well. I mean, George is an excellent writer, but that just really hit me pretty hard when I was looking into researching for this episode, and I thought, man, that sounds like the crypts to me, and especially told by Theon, someone who goes to the crypts, someone who knows about the crypts, who knows how to get to them. I just think it's really interesting that George writes it that way.
Yeah, I think it's also interesting that even when writing about mist, he still compares it to food, which is interesting.
George likes food.
No, but I think it's just like really cool that like Theon even feels like the spirits, like you were saying, just feels like there's a lot of spirits and unrest in Winterfell. Especially, I think it's because there isn't a Stark in Winterfell at that time. It's just these Boltons.
When there's no Starks, everyone's just kind of miserable.
Mm-hmm.
In Winterfell.
And Theon of all people is haunted by what he did at Winterfell, but Winterfell also seems to speak to him, right? It speaks through the tree of Bran, but other memories and these other images stand out to Theon because I think he knows that he has broken that bond. He's responsible for a lot of the circumstances right now. And yeah, it's really powerful. It's a really good point, Cole.
I also think it's kind of interesting too. Oh, sorry, were you? I think you were cutting in and out.
I was going to ask for I was going to ask for anything else.
I think it's interesting too, though. Like with Theon, he says it feels like some strange underworld, some tireless place between the worlds. I think it's Theon. He's kind of talking about himself right now. Like he thinks he's in this place of, he's not quite dead or alive, and he's the one wandering these grounds and going down to his own hell where his sins, like, he's talking about himself, I think, at this point.
Well, it's like he kind of created his own hell.
Yeah, and he's the one, but I'm saying he's the one wandering around who's mournful and sorry, and just like he's like that unrestful being that's there,
Yeah, I mean, one of his chapters is called "A Ghost in Winterfell," and I think physically, he looks broken and beaten and near death, but also spiritually, he is not. He is someone wishes he were dead, and this is kind of like a purgatory for Theon. He's being punished. He's being I think that imagery, and that's the power of George, right? That paragraph can mean so many different things. It can stand in for the others. It can stand in for the Crypts. It can stand in for Theon himself. It can stand in for the moment. Jane Poole is someone who is suffering as well. So it's just a really, really evocative, as all of those chapters, especially in A Dance with Dragons, all of those Theon chapters are, but also all of those, Bran chapters, the Clash of Kings when he's in Winterfell. I mean, it's just so good. Winterfell is such a powerful place, and the crypts are such an important setting within the castle. So I think that's probably a good place to end.
On a
again,
downer.
I want to thank you all for a downer. I want to thank you. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for listening.
Yes, thank you.
Spoopy Halloween.
Thank you. I mean, have a happy Halloween. If you're chatting with us in the live stream, I guess we'll end it here, but we'll stick around for a few questions.
All right. Well, y'all have a good night. We'll leave the chat up for a few minutes. Okay, so
I won't worry about mine. That's fine.
no. Okay, we're back for. There you go. Did you want to say something?
Oh no, it's just my outro.
I did
Fine, we're back. I was confused. Okay, we're they can
Okay,
hear
we're
and
back.
see you now.
Okay. All right. So our first question is from Pedro, who's asking who our favorite Starks are. So sorry about
Mm.
that small little delay, guys. We had a bit of a confusion on our end. So Brett's getting the pilot. Rip. So favorite Stark. I don't know. I'd probably pick. Probably Sansa or Jon. I really enjoy reading Sansa's point of view chapters, and then Jon's dance chapters are just some of the most glorious things to ever be put onto pages. And I really like those two, and I'm really looking forward to their journeys in Wind's Winter. How about you guys?
Come back to me. That's a hard because I like all the Starks, but they're not like I'm not particularly like super drawn to all of them. Um, I mean, I think Sansa and Arya have to be up there for me for the Starks. But yeah,
I think for me, um, you know what? I really wish Rickon had more story to him, because I feel like he is one of the Starks that has been very left out in the books and the show. So like I definitely want to see like more of him, and I hope he doesn't just like die like he did in the show. Sorry, spoiler alert.
Yeah.
But I think my favorite like fully developed Stark still has to be Ned Stark. He is just like the most, like, to me, the most interesting Stark there is. So
Yeah, I think that probably Ned for me. I mean, is the fact that his memory, um, is going to last forever. His lessons are going to last forever. Um, I'm going to consider her Stark, Catelyn.
oh yeah, yeah, I
Catelyn to me
didn't,
is one of
yeah.
my is one of my absolutely favorite
Lynn is
characters and
awesome.
one of my favorite
That was a great
POVs.
character.
So I and it's funny because when I first read the books, which happened after I watched the first season, Catelyn chapters just in game and dance or dance game and clash just stood out to me as like the moment when I turned to a Catelyn chapter, I was like, oh, okay, I want to read this point of view. Not that I didn't want to read the other ones. I probably liked Ned the most, but Catelyn's point of view is just astounding to me, and she was a great character. And she spends a lot of the time thinking that she is not of the North and not a Stark, etc. But she and Ned were a really power couple, and I think that will be. I hope at the end of the series that the Starks, unlike in the show, I hope the Starks remember both Ned and Catelyn for the lessons that they taught their children.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting though that Catelyn, John, and Theon all have like thoughts. They're like, I'm not supposed to be here. They all kind of go through those. Kate in the chat said she is. I'm paraphrasing, but stoked to learn more about Benjen, and depending on what Benjen's doing up in the north, he might be the coolest Stark. If he's like on some secret ops mission to find the heart of winter or whatever he's doing up there.
I think Jane Westerling Stark. She's a.
Fair.
I guess they never consummated, so.
No, I think no, they did.
Well, they never had like the
I think
actual
you count
wedding.
her as a Stark.
No, they did.
Well, they died in their wedding, so.
No, that was
Oh, that was a different wedding. I
yeah,
forgot
that
about
was
that. Yeah, so no. Jane Westerling Stark. Best Stark.
the problem with the Starks though is they're not Stannis. I mean, is the real problem.
Actually, I think that's what makes them better. As
It's
people.
probably, yeah, most definitely.
I just meant to read, okay?
Starks are
Okay,
too honorable,
Yeah,
technically,
we still
yes.
don't know if Jane's hips are good for birthing. But, that'd be weird. Like, what does if George reverts? Is he going to revert back to his original description or the second one?
Will it matter?
Excuse me.
I don't know.
So
I've lost the discussion, so I don't even know what's
continuing on.
Yeah, next question.
Yeah, sorry.
So we got a question
I was
from Amy Blackfire. She has her own YouTube channel. Go check it out at Amy Blackfire. Do you think we will get anything like the show where Tyrion and Sansa are hiding in the crypts?
I definitely think that there's going.
Sorry,
I don't know if it will be like the thing about Tyrion is, Tyrion defended King's Landing against Stannis. Tyrion is going to have some good plans in the Battle of Fire. He's likely to hold Green for Daenerys until she gets back. He's going to be probably much better commander of her armies or of her planning on taking Westeros, before everything begins to fall apart. So I would hate to see Tyrion stuck down in the crypts because they could have done so much more with that character. Sansa, I think Sansa makes sense to go down there, in a Lady of Winterfell type position of trying to keep the sick and the elderly and the children comfortable. I kind of think of her as in like Eowyn in the siege of Helm's Deep in the Two Towers. Mm-hmm. So I could kind of see her, absolutely going down into the crypts to try and keep order and keep everyone calm and care for them. And I also think that that's the perfect setting for Sansa to be unlike Cersei, right? When they're in Red Keep waiting for Stannis to attack, she's just sitting there watching Cersei thinking, I would never do this if I were queen. I would never act like this. I would give these people comfort. I would, I would care for them. And so I think that that's a perfect setting for her to show her skill.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
I also think, sorry, kind of a little off the topic, but the sick and elderly. This is a random question, but do you think they make worse undead than fit, like Night's Watch soldiers?
I don't think so.
Do you think there's more prime undead people? Like they can be more of a prime person to rise back from the dead, or do you think they're all the same?
I don't know.
I told you it was a little off topic, but I was just the thought popped into my head when you said sick and elderly in the tombs, and I'm like, what do the White Walkers gain if they're not that good?
Yeah, I mean it's kind of like The Walking Dead, like zombies on The Walking Dead. Like I guess their goal is to kill and eat and tear people apart, and so if they have a limp in real life, they might not have that limp when they're
maybe not
undead. So I don't know. I mean I'm not sure.
Sorry, yeah, that was off topic. I just was really curious.
No, it's all right. I don't know if it really matters. Anyways,
Yeah, I could definitely see Sansa going down in the crypts. Aaron in the chat mentioned that she would be the one to bring Ned's bones down there, of which I
Yes.
100% believe would happen and will happen.
I don't
Yeah.
think Tyrion will
But
end up in the crypts, though.
I think
Yeah.
Tyrion only would through like exploration and curiosity.
Yeah, but I don't think during like a siege he would end up down
Yeah, during
there.
a siege, he'd be
He
doing something.
he would be, yeah, he'd be on the wall.
I mean, he'd be out of the gate fighting,
Well,
Probably.
he only did that because
He
there
might be
was
trying to. He might be looking for his own gain at that point. He might be like 100% villainized.
I think
Yeah.
he also kind of rode out on his own because he wanted to be like Jamie a little bit. So
Everyone does.
even Jamie.
But there's only one. So how many more questions do you guys want? I know it's later where you're at. What, one more question? I know we got at least
I
one.
can. Yeah, a couple more.
Let's see. I'm scrolling through chat. Amy asks, "Are any of you convinced by the dragons under Winterfell theory, explaining why it is warm?" I'm guessing this is in.
Kai.
I think I've heard of this theory. And it's of
Yeah.
an alive dragon, underneath Winterfell, or at least like a dormant one, a full-grown dragon.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say we need Kyle, but he's the ice dragon guy, so it would be cold under Winterfell. I don't know. I mean, I kind of think of that theory in terms of like that's something in universe that people would explain, like, oh, okay, these pools are here because once there was a dragon, and it kind of ties into George's that short story, The Ice Dragon, which is a really good book. It's a really good little story, and I can't wait till I get to read it to Claire one day. But I think if I remember correctly, at the end of that story, the ice dragon melts. It creates a lake, and so the character, the little girl, visits the lake, and so I could kind of see like in universe, people saying, "Oh, the hot springs are because a dragon once lived here and he died, and he heated the water." And so I don't necessarily think there's a dragon down there, but I could see it as being like one of those legends that explains why the hot pools are under Winterfell or under the North or whatever. That makes sense.
I mean, if there is, I kind of agree with that, or I pretty much agree with that, and maybe the dragon under Winterfell is, more meant to signify the egg that John might find, or John himself. But yeah,
I don't think I really see that's why it's being warm. I think it's just
yeah,
hot springs.
I don't really think either. I'm just like, it's hot springs.
It's an interesting
a nice
theory,
cozy
though.
place. Nice cozy castle.
Pedro says something interesting.
I was just gonna say I would like it though to be a
Page-
dragon. I would like there to be a dragon under there. Sorry,
Yeah.
Travis.
I was going to say, Pedro says something interesting in the chat. He says the hot springs would help Vermax lay eggs, like the vapors and hotness under Dragonstone. I think that's a pretty good point. That
makes sense.
If there were eggs laid there, that then that's probably one of the reasons why. And
All right. We got another question from Pedro. Do you believe in the share mind theory of the others?
I think so. Like just like that sort of the hive mind type thing.
Yeah, I think they could probably send like telepathic links to one another. They could probably be like, "Hey, go here.
I'm not
go over here."
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of like if you kill the, you know, the leader or
Yeah.
whatever. I don't think there's a
Yeah, I
Night King
really
in
didn't.
the.
Yeah, I didn't like that.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah,
it's like
I
it's
don't
like the
really like
battle
that.
droids from Star Wars.
Yeah, it really was.
So I hope
Yeah,
it's not. I hope it's a little more complicated than that.
Well, I mean,
yeah.
it could be
I could
like
see like
ants, you know.
Yeah.
yeah, I could definitely see like telepathic links,
Yeah,
or they could communicate with one another from like Hard Home to like the Bridge of Skulls and stuff. Because that's a vast tract of land to be spread across.
yeah.
Well, I don't know if there's
Yeah.
necessarily no. I think there probably isn't a telepathic link though, in long distances. Well,
Well, you got to think they brought those bodies in
yeah,
through the wall,
maybe
and then
because they attacked Mormont. So actually, maybe
Yeah,
there is.
there's a lot of like guesswork with it because we just don't know. There's just yeah.
yeah.
It's
What do you think, Travis?
I would think that there's a hive mind, I don't know if it's a shared conscience or conscious or what between them, but I think they have to be able to, we know they speak, we know that they have a language. Of course, those White Walkers are in close proximity to each other, but I think they have to be able to coordinate in some way, and if they have some kind of magical ability like green seeing or other, um I would think that would extend over thousands and thousands of miles. They would be able to coordinate attacks and stuff. So plus I think if there's not one leader, which I agree with you, I don't think there's a Night King a Night King like figure in the books. I think the White Walkers have to be able to. Okay, this is going to get nerdy, but it has kind of be like the Borg from Star Trek. You know, just because you kill one doesn't mean all of the others like lose that knowledge or lose the ability that one White Walker could do. Although Star Trek then creates a Borg queen,
But-
which doesn't make sense. But anyway, well, it kind of does for
That-
Star Trek. Okay, I'm getting really off the rails here.
That's why I kind of compared them
Like
to
ants. Okay, I'm
too.
stopping.
yeah, I like that.
That's why I kind of compared them to ants because it's like maybe even if you like kill the queen, you know, like all the ants just don't cease existence. Like they're still there.
Yeah.
It's just now that there's no queen, no more are being produced. Like no more ants are being born.
Yeah. All right, you guys want one more question? I've only seen one other question pop up in
One
chat so
more.
far.
Yeah, let's do one more.
Well, it was sort of a jokey question. I don't think Amy actually meant this as a question, but she was replying to a old Nan knows all comment from Kelly and said, "But is old Nan Rohan Weber puts on tinfoil hat?
Wait, say that again. What was it?
Is old Nan Rohan Weber?"
Oh.
Who?
Oh, you haven't read. Yeah, he hasn't read the Dunk. It's from Duck and Egg.
I haven't read those yet.
You know, I would love that to be honest, because Rohan Weber is, she's a great character.
Yeah. Love her. She's great.
I doubt it though.
You're probably not.
But yeah. Micah has read. Have you read the last Dunk and Egg book?
I've read Sworn Sword. Don't worry.
Okay, but you're just
I'm 2/3 of the way through Dunk and Egg. I've read Hedge Knight. I've read Sworn Sword. I'm gonna read Mystery Knight eventually.
Is there an audiobook for these graphic novellas?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have
Harry
them.
Lloyd. I
Isn't
believe
there-
Harry
aren't they,
Lloyd,
like,
who
very
was
picture heavy though?
Viserys in the
No, that-
show, narrates them.
That's something else.
No, I have a graphic
He
novel
does.
version
That one's
of
cool.
one
I
of
like that.
the first book, but yeah.
I'm kind of torn on this. Like, would the math work out for her to be? I mean, old Nan is very, very old, right? Very, very old. So now I'm trying to make it work. Because
She'd be
Hodor shares some his height, shares some physical traits with Dunk. So does Rohan hook up with Dunk at some other time, and Hodor is one of Dunk's ancestors.
I didn't even
She
think
was
about that. Yeah.
Lady Lannister. So somehow she has to get away. I guess she could go under a pseudonym and escape. But I mean, I think it's.
Yeah,
I think this is one of those things that George puts there that for the reader to be like, this could be a possibility, but either will never provide the truth, or he really is just kind of
Amy makes a good point that
eating you.
a big reason why everyone speculates is because she disappeared, which of course just makes everyone go, "Where to?
Yep.
Where'd you go?" And for all we know, she just took the Alyssa Farman route and just got out of Westeros completely.
Where'd you go? Maybe 6 feet under.
And Aaron says, seems highly unlikely that she'd be a servant in the Stark house. I mean,
I didn't think about
Rohan
that, yeah.
Weber again was a noble, and she the Lady of Casterly Rock. Not that trying to diss servants here, but there would have to be a lot of explanation of how you go from that to being willing to come to Winterfell to nurse Brandon Stark, because I think that's the reason. That's the reason Nan is said to have come to Winterfell in the first place, because whichever Brandon Stark it was, Brandon's mother died, and so old Nan came as a wet nurse.
Yeah, it's most likely not. She's most likely not Rohan, but tinfoil is tinfoil.
I like it. But yeah.
We have our dreams. John has his dreams. The crypts are a place for dreams.
Well, is that it?
I
think
think
that's
so.
it. Yeah,
Huh?
I think we're good.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, everyone have a good
thanks
night.
for coming.
Yes.
Thanks for hopping in the chat, everybody. Glad to see everyone here. I see a lot of familiar faces from Twitter and Slack.
Yes, thank you all. And oh yeah. Like, rate us. I know it's a pain in the butt to go over to iTunes, and that's the only place you can really do it. But y'all should do that if you haven't already. And yeah. And you got anything? Anything to plug?
No.
Anything?
Thanks
Nobody?
for having me. I don't have anything to plug yet, but I am working on a food podcast. So just, keep an eye out for that. Maybe
fun.
we'll
Thanks for
go into
Just
coming.
gonna
Game of
keep.
Thrones food.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for coming, Colin.
Yeah, it's fun.
You should just analyze George's like food porn.
Yeah, that would be great. Brett has the cookbook and everything, so
Yeah, I want
and
to
then you
start
should-
making some of that stuff.
And then you should read the Red Wall
Something I
series,
don't have,
just
but
for
I
the food.
yeah. I need to I want meat pie. Like my wife can't eat gluten, so we hardly ever eat bread because of that. But I want like just a meat pie that they talk about in A Song of Ice and Fire. Like it just sounds so good to me.
I want
Yeah.
some of that honey bread that they eat like every morning.
Mm.
I don't know why.
Yes,
it just
like the
sounds
fried
really
honey
good.
bread with bacon or sausage.
I
Yeah,
think we're veering off course again.
yeah, a little bit. All right, bye everybody.
Have a good night, everyone.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna leave the stream up for a second, and then I'm gonna close it. But y'all have a good night, and that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was fun. It was good talking with you guys. So I think
Yeah, we're
it's
we're not muted. No, I think we are. Are we not? Oh, maybe I'm not.